Good morning. Good morning, all. What a pleasure it is to be here, and what a warm welcome I received in the chat. So thank you for that. As many of you can see from the title of the YouTube, that we're going to do Poetry of Practice again with some different poems. I was here, I think it was in August, a couple of months ago, doing some poetry, and I had so much fun doing that. And I heard from a number of you that you enjoyed it too. So here we are again, the poetry of practice. And maybe I'll start in a similar way that I started back in August, and that is to just recognize that there is a way in which we can engage with practice, and we can engage with Buddhist teachings in a way that is maybe focused on learning, understanding, maybe learning or understanding technique or teachings. And right, there's all these Buddhist lists, right? But there's this emphasis on learning, like gaining something that we didn't have, gaining some knowledge that we didn't have. And to be sure, I love this way. I like to learn new things and to like explore new topics. But that's not the only way, right? That's not the only way to engage with teachings and practice, this way in which we feel like we have to consume lots of information. It can be helpful, but there's also a way that invites another type of knowing, like this way in which we might touch with awareness or something like that. There's this maybe a caress of information, a caress of something. I don't even quite know how to explain it, but this way in which poetry allows this opening of the heart and the softening of that which wants to know more and learn more. And maybe poetry also is like a type of coming home, that is, that we have to be here and present to feel the poem, to touch into the poem. So the way that I'm describing it, poetry is maybe a little bit more of a somatic experience, and maybe even the way that I'm using that type of language is maybe like a little not so straightforward, but I'm hoping that you, right, all of us have read poems, poetry, and maybe you understand what I'm talking to, that there's a way in which poetry sometimes invites this recognition of something that's true and pure inside of us, as opposed to just kind of like amassing more information. It allows us to soften this, always this leaning into evaluation or leaning into the next moment. Do I understand it? Do I got it? As opposed to maybe the question is, oh, what does this feel like? As opposed to, what am I supposed to learn? So poetry is a way that we allow language to touch us in a different way than our normal way of interacting with perhaps Buddhist teachings, or perhaps even just the world in general. Many of you know that there's plenty of verse in the Pali Canon. In the earliest Buddhist literature, there's lots of verse. There's the awakening poems, there's the Dhammapada, there's this Atthakavagga, the Book of Eights, the Sutta Nipata, all these. And so today, I'll drop in some verse that is from contemporary times. I'll drop in some during our sit, and then during the little Dharmette, maybe unpack it a little bit, what this poem means. And I'm delighted to share these with you, not necessarily because all of you will love these poems, but hopefully just with the introduction of poetry itself is a pointing towards there's different ways of being with our experience, different ways of being with information, and that we can use all these ways to support our practice. Okay, with that as an introduction, And just take a moment to really settle in. Maybe a large exhale as we sit, whether that's literal or figurative, that we take a meditation posture. And perhaps feel these sensations of sitting. Feel the pressure of the chair, cushion, the couch, the bed, whatever you're sitting on, feeling the pressure against the body. Feeling the body in contact. We're here, connected, grounded, just here. Can we feel the sensations on the back of our legs that are in contact, our feet that are in contact? In the sensations on the back, if we're leaning against the back of a chair, feel the sensations on the back side where we're sitting. Bringing an aliveness of attention to this experience of being connected to whatever it is we're sitting on. Being connected to here. Can we bring some mindfulness into the bodily experience? Inhabiting the body with presence, with aliveness. Alive to the body and the way it feels right now. And then setting this sense of direction, the orientation of this meditation as one of kindness. Kindness to ourselves, and openness to the experience as best we can. If you work with chronic pain or acute pain at this moment, is there a neutral or a pleasant experience you can rest your attention on rather than the uncomfortable? Not denying, not pretending that the uncomfortable isn't there, just choosing as best we can to rest our attention elsewhere. Maybe it is the pressure against the buttocks as we're sitting that's neutral. And tangible. holding yourself in care, holding yourself with a kind attitude, with warmth. So we're here with an attitude of care. And then rest your attention on the sensations of breathing, feeling the bodily experience of inhales and exhales. Feeling the stretching and the release of the stretch. That occurs with breathing. Tuning into, becoming sensitive to the experience of breathing. The movements in the body as the body breathes. Feeling the beginning, middle, and end of an inhale. Feel the beginning, middle, and end of an exhale. And feeling the transitions between inhales and exhales. when the mind wanders. We don't have to make it a problem. We just very simply, gently begin again. I'm going to drop in a poem. You don't have to do anything with this poem. Allow it to be received. You don't have to try to understand it or apply it. Just hear it. This is about somebody going their experience at a meditation retreat. When I first floundered in, no one knew me, not even myself. Staggering under a Saratoga trunk crammed with humiliations bottled like urine samples, nail kegs of anger, carbons of abusive letters, chemistry quizzes with Fs, even the horse I never had, and 2 casseroles left over from the dime-a-dip supper. No one remarked that I had brought too much. I was wearing 3 fur hats donated by opulent cousins, my feet encased in cement ever since the failure of the patio project, and my mouth full of barbs as an old trout. No one praised my appearance. The trunk fell off my back, disgorging its unusual contents at my stone feet, which also came off. The fur hats tumbled like a moth-eaten avalanche burying a small monk. No one noticed. No one. No one. I'll read it again. When I first floundered in, no one knew me, not even myself. Staggering under a Saratoga trunk crammed with humiliations bottled like urine samples, nail kegs of anger, carbons of abusive letters, chemistry quizzes with Fs, even the horse I never had, and 2 casseroles left over from the dime-a-dip supper. No one remarked that I had brought too much. I was wearing 3 fur hats donated by opulent cousins, my feet encased in cement ever since the failure of the patio project, and my mouth full of barbs as an old trout. No one praised my appearance. The trunk fell off my back, disgorging its unusual contents at my stone feet, which also came off. The fur hats tumbled like a moth-eaten avalanche burying a small monk. No one noticed. No one. So for those of you who are here for the poem, this is called Zazen by Virginia Hamilton Adair. Again, that's Zazen by Virginia Hamilton Adair. And I don't know if you can hear this. So I have this background noise going on. I'm just going to close my door here for a moment. I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry that I had to make that sound go away. So this poem, some of you who have listened to some of the happy hour I've done, or some of Dharma talks, or Path of Fearlessness, know that I really enjoy poems that have a certain amount of whimsy to them and that are really have a lot of imagery in them. So I think that's part of the power of poems, right? Is they're not being explicit, but they're pointing to something that we can feel or imagine, or, a different way of understanding something. So this poem, Zazen by Virginia Hamilton Adair, is describing a meditation. Maybe it's a day long or a retreat or something. And it seems like there's so many wonderful, the poet is using so many wonderful images here. And maybe I'll begin by reading it again. When I first floundered in, no one knew me, not even myself. Staggering under a Saratoga trunk crammed with humiliations bottled like urine samples, nail kegs of anger, carbons of abusive letters, chemistry quizzes with Fs, even the horse I never had, and 2 casseroles left over from the dime-a-dip supper. No one remarked that I had brought too much. I was wearing 3 fur hats donated by opulent cousins, my feet encased in cement ever since the failure of the patio project, and my mouth full of barbs as an old trout. No one praised my appearance. The trunk fell off my back, disgorging its unusual contents at my stone feet, which also came off. The fur hats tumbled like a moth-eaten avalanche, burying a small monk. No one noticed. No one. I kind of like this unconventional, but evocative imagery that's used here. And for example, the poet, she uses the first line is when I first floundered in. This floundered in, this clumsily, maybe with some confusion, some staggering, and reminds me of when I first came to a meditation hall. I really didn't know what to expect, what was happening, and kind of what I was supposed to do. I mean, maybe there's a way that we feel that way with our own meditation practice, or even if we go to meditation centers or to meditation retreats, we feel okay, is there a protocol here that I'm supposed to follow? I feel a little bit awkward. And then the poet, she also writes, no one knew me, not even myself. Oh, I just love this line because such a big part of meditation practice is a self-understanding. For example, I had no idea how much planning I did until I started to have meditation practice, and I just saw what was going on in my mind. And then as I, continued with meditation practice, I discovered that probably underneath all this planning was some fear. I couldn't even necessarily tell you exactly what the fear was about, but I just knew that I had to be prepared just in case. Maybe I didn't have confidence that I could handle whatever it was that was going to happen. And this is for me part of the power of poetry, that just a few lines can be really evocative of so much, because also we might understand this line, no one knew me, not even myself, is this recognition that sometimes, that meditation centers can't be initially like this really warm, welcoming place. Maybe some are, but maybe some aren't if they're filled with some shy introverts. Or if you come a little bit late, and some people, maybe not late, but maybe not too early, and some people are already meditating, so they're sitting there with their eyes closed. And so there's a way in which you just come in and you kind of like, is this okay? And for some people, and certainly for some communities, this can be really off-putting, this sense of just going into a meditation hall, meditation space, and there isn't necessarily a warm welcoming. And then the poet, she continues, staggering under a Saratoga trunk crammed with, and then she gives this big long list of things. Right? It's true, we bring baggage wherever we go. Whether we realize we're doing it or not, there's this kind of like heaviness that can follow us. And she puts this long list, some of what I kind of like is these carbons of abusive letters, like, these things that we keep copies of, things that are painful, harmful. You might even use the word trauma here. Like, these are carbon copies. They aren't the original things, but there's these carbon copies that we're keeping with us. I don't know exactly when this poem was written, but those of you, probably many of you remember, right? We used to use carbon paper and type on things to keep a copy. And it was the carbons are always a little bit fuzzy, not quite as clear. I mean, they were obviously carbon and they were on a different piece of paper. So this recognition that it's not the original harm, but a copy of it that we're carrying with us. And these chemistry quizzes with F's that the poet is also bringing. Yeah, right. The things that happen to us when we're young. I was just sharing with some friends recently that when I was, I don't know, maybe 11 years old or something, that I wanted to sign up for choir practice or chorus, at my school, because my friends were. And the chorus teacher asked me, Diana, maybe you can just mouth the words. Because of my voice, I don't know how to carry a tune. It's just not possible for me. And then this shows up when I'm starting to begin a meditation retreat and I'm supposed to be leading the chant and I have a microphone on and everybody's going to be hearing me chanting. I feel like, oh yeah, this little voice that's like, Diana, you're not a very good chanter or singer or something like this. So these things that we carry around with us that are extra, these extra. But I appreciate that the poet includes, like, no one remarked that I had brought too much. Well, maybe nobody's talking at all. Or maybe they didn't see what she had brought. Or maybe they saw, but weren't saying anything. There's a way in which this can be helpful, but it also can be a little bit disconcerting. Like, doesn't anybody acknowledge what's happening here? And so we might say that there's a sense of progress or a sense of movement during this poem, because first is like the arriving, and then maybe it's the sense of practicing. The poet writes, I was wearing 3 fur hats donated by opulent cousins. For me, I'm thinking like, these are things that, our family kind of like puts on us, expectations they have, or things that they think we like, or, oh, you're the one, you're the smart one, you're the funny one, you're the dumb one, you're the silly one, like these things that kind of like family gives to us. Maybe I'm reading too much into this poem, but there can be a way in which what we are carrying, what we're holding with us, are things that family has given us. And then the poet, again, Virginia Hamilton Adair, she continues, my feet encased in cement ever since the failure of the patio project, right? The sense of stuckness we get when we have a sense of failure. And then she also says, in my mouth full of barbs as an old trout. Might even say maybe she's doing a little bit of body scanning, right? She's talking about her head, hats. The mouth full of barbs, and feet encased in cement. And full of barbs as an old trout, right? This is trout, they take the bait and then they get caught. So what are the things that we do to take bait that we get caught with? And then there's this sense of shame or inadequacy that's part of this poem. Sense of not being good enough, right? There's nothing in this poem where she's feeling comfortable or at ease or with warmth towards herself. This sense of lack, this sense of inadequacy often drives a real strong sense of seeking that shows up in our spiritual practice, convinced that the sense of lack, this moment is lacking, this self is lacking. So we're always like spilling over into the next moment that holds the promise of somehow being better, more satisfying. And then the poet describes, the trunk fell off my back, disgorging its unusual contents. Disgorging, what a fantastic verb. Like this discharging, this expelling, this emitting, which isn't smooth or effortless. Like this letting go that happens often is something that's not easy, not straightforward. And part of what's getting disgorged are these identities. For her, maybe I'm the one who doesn't do well in chemistry. I'm the one who failed the patio project. And meditation in some ways is a purification practice, maybe an extraction practice where the removal of everything that's extra. And part of what's extra are the ways that we identify with what's happened to us in the past and limit ourselves with these types of ideas. And to be sure, these moments of freedom can feel like an unburdening, disgorging, the Saratoga trunk falling off our back. Like, oh, the lightning. And then lastly, I'll close with this use of the poet using this word, no one. No one knew me, not even myself. No one remarked that I had brought too much. No one praised my appearance. No one noticed. And then she ends just with no one. Recognition that not even she was there. No one. There's not a self. We have all these identities that we take up, but part of this practice, this disgorging, if you will, this purification, you will, is a letting go of these selves that we create and feel so much like we have to bolster and support and defend. So this poem, Zazen, by Virginia Hamilton Adair, just for me, it just brings a sense of delight. And I hope maybe it did for you today, for you this morning. And maybe you can bring this sense of delight with you as you go throughout your day. Thank you very much for joining me this morning, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.